Hello writers, today we're gonna be talking on week 16 how to find inspiration. Every writer needs inspiration, needs to be able to find inspiration from some place or multiple places, but the trick is to find those places and to make time to be active in them, you could say. Let me explain. Finding inspiration basically means getting motivated, finding ideas, that feeling when you really want to write because you have so many ideas and you can't stop thinking about it. That's inspiration. Some people used to call it talking with your muses. It has to do with Greek mythology. The muses were people who gave ideas to people. But so basically it's just finding inspiration. And a good way to look at it is when you do these activities, you'll get ideas. But if you imagine that ideas as things that will pass from your mind and go on to other people's minds, you'll realize how precious they are. Because if you have an idea but you don't write it down, one day that idea will move on to someone else and they'll write it instead. So when you get an idea, it's as if the idea chose you. That's not like new agey. It's just a good way to look at how ideas come and go, because there are a lot of humans on Earth and there are only so many ideas. So that's just an interview to ideas and inspiration. And now we're going to talk about how to find it. So first, the most obvious one is nature. So if you go outside or into a garden, or if you don't have a garden, walk down the street and find the pretty things. And just don't stress about finding ideas, but just enjoy the nature. Especially if it's super beautiful nature, like going to a waterfall. Always go to a waterfall if you can. Maybe picking flowers, drying flowers. If you squish them, if you get 2 pieces of plain paper and put the flower in between them and then stick that in a heavy book, if you need to, stacking more books on top to make it heavy enough and leave it for a couple weeks, then the flowers will be super pressed and pretty and you can lay them around or hang them, and that's fun. And so basically, nature in any form, if it's raining, listen to the rain, think about the rain. Those sort of things, like nature, will inspire you to write about it, or maybe write about something else. As humans, God made us so that we love nature and find it beautiful. And so naturally, we're gonna get inspired by something we find beautiful. Okay, number 2, read books. Read the books that are similar to ones you want to write. Read books that aren't similar to ones you want to write. You don't worry about stealing other people's ideas just now. You just want to start filling your mind with any possible way writing can take, any possible route a story can take, every single plot idea, every pretty, well-written sentence, every character flaw or personality trait, and you just want to fill your mind with that by reading multiple books, as many books as you can, especially though in the type of books that you want to write one day. So if you want to write with unicorns and magical things, read books like that, because you'll get a lot of different ideas and eventually you'll create your own ideas. And if you like science fiction, read books about science, read books about the future, and eventually you'll get more skilled in writing in that by just filling your head with that. Okay. Number 3 is art in any form. Art comes in so many different forms. It's not just painting on a piece of paper. Though if you enjoy that, definitely do that. And use not just one type of painting or drawing, but use oil, use crayons, melt crayons, just use a black pen only for some. Do whatever you want and draw everything. And draw weird things and mix up things and draw monsters and draw plain things, draw your parents, draw whenever you can. And that'll also give you inspiration. If you don't like drawing and painting and stuff, learn songs, sing in different languages. It's not as hard as it sounds. You don't have to speak a language to sing it. I sang an Italian song once called Già la notte s'avvicina. So beautiful, but I definitely don't speak Italian. And besides drawing, singing, sewing is a form of art, knitting, so many things are a form of art, dancing, whatever your heart desires. Art is basically just celebrating beauty and trying to create beautiful things in our own way. Beautiful sounds, beautiful shapes, if you dance, or beautiful pictures and everything like that. Number 4 is an interesting one, and it's talk to old people and ask them about their stories. Older people, seniors, your grandparents, or maybe your grandparents' friends, love to talk about their life. And they did crazy things in their life. They've lived a long time, most of them, a lot longer than we have. So it's almost like another way of finding stories, but stories that were never written down. Stories that have not been told yet. And that's what you can get if you talk to older people and ask them to tell you a story. Maybe ask them to tell you stories from when they're younger or when they're slightly older, because those can be a lot more interesting than you expect. Okay. Number 5 is watch good movies. What I mean by good movies is not SpongeBob. So lots of animated movies can be good movies. Some Disney movies are very good. Tangled is a fairy tale retelling of Rapunzel. It's very good, super creative and beautiful, and lots of good music. But besides animated movies, Anne of Green Gables is very good. It's very creative. It will definitely inspire you. And then there's like Narnia, which is a classic. Narnia is epic, and I definitely recommend it if you haven't seen it yet. Number 6 is musicals. Musicals are a form of plays which are performed on a stage. It's a form of storytelling, but specifically there's lots of songs in it that tell stories. And so basically it's like reading a book or watching a movie. They're all forms of storytelling, and you should definitely fill your head with forms of storytelling. Musicals are super amazing because they're singing versions of stories, and that takes a lot more work. So usually the songs themselves, even if you can't see the musical, but just listen to songs from musicals, they'll be more condensed and more rich. So they'll tell the story, but with less words and prettier words, basically. So that'll help you when you write stories to write with prettier words. And so that's musicals. Even if you can't see the musical itself or in person, even if you just watch some on YouTube or listen to the music, it's very good. Some good ones are La La Land, The Greatest Showman, I'm trying to think of an actual play, Cinderella, Jesus Freak. Actually, that's not a musical. But there are so many good musicals out there. Just can't think of them right now. But you should definitely try to find some of those. Number 7 is write down your dreams. If you have a notebook and a pen right beside you as soon as you wake up, you'll be able to write it down before you forget. And eventually you'll remember more and more of your dreams. Your dreams are basically just a smash up of the randomest things you might have thought about once, might have not thought about ever, or anything that's running through your mind. Because of the way your mind works, it's super crazy. And eventually, also, you'll start having more vivid dreams, more interesting dreams, if you start to write them down. Some people can even lucid dream, which is not a scary, freaky thing. It's just being partly awake while you're dreaming. So what you see is your dream, but you're aware of it. So that's very interesting to look into if you want to. And super fun. Some of my friends have accidentally lucid dreamt because they were just super tired and they started to sleepwalk and eventually lucid dreamed, and they controlled their dreams and they controlled what happened in it, and that's what they saw. So basically, write down your dreams because you can get a lot of inspiration from your dreams. Your mind is a lot more full than you think it is. Number 8 and 9 are history and science. And history might sound boring, but trust me, there's a lot of things that aren't in history books that are actually really interesting. If you just, Googling random historical facts, there's some books that are funny historical facts they won't tell you. Stuff like that. And also, sometimes if you just open up a couple history books, maybe histories from countries that you don't live in, then you'll find some really interesting things in there. Stories about kings and queens and armies and palaces and castles and planes and building planes and stuff like that. There's so many interesting things that have happened in history because, fun fact, we are not more interesting than the people who used to live a long, long time ago. We are very special because we're ourselves. And you're very special, but people were also very special and thought a lot and were funny ages ago. Our grandparents were also super funny. They also had senses of humor. They also did dumb things, silly things, funny things, good things. So a lot of history is really cool. Number 9, science. This is especially if you want to write science fiction, but even if you don't, you can get inspiration from it. Things like, not 100% sure if this is considered science, but astrology, like the study of stars. I think that's science. Anyways, astronomy. Astrology is not good. Astronomy is good. That's the study of stars, and that can be super interesting. There are amazing, beautiful pictures of galaxies out there. If you need inspiration from nature again, you can look at pictures of the galaxies, maybe try to draw them. They're so beautiful. But yeah, galaxies, stars, how stars are made is super interesting. But also, back to science, chemistry, when certain chemicals are mixed together, maybe they explode. Maybe you can use that in a magical story where they have potions. Potions in fantasy stories are usually real things, like maybe actual chemicals that you might learn about in science, mixed together along with love. So not actually love, but it's magical if you add something that can't actually be added in real life, right? So that makes it fun. Okay, number 10 is something random. It's just do something active. If you go on a hike or if you work out your body, it'll make your mind more awake. And in awakening your mind more, you'll get more ideas. So that can be doing jumping jacks or cartwheels or going on a swing or climbing a tree. Super fun. Definitely recommend. It'll wake your mind up. Okay, so some things to remember are, even when you feel stuck and you don't have inspiration, remember that this happens to every writer, every great writer, every beginning writer. Every single writer will get stuck, and that does not mean you aren't talented. Every person who tries to write a story is talented in their own way. You are not talented if you get stuck or can't think of ideas. It just means that you don't have a lot of inspiration filled up. And if you do some of these things, you'll fill your inspiration back up. So, your recommendation for today is to watch some good movies or read some books in the genres that you want to write in eventually, specifically. Some good movies, for example, again, are Narnia, Anne of Green Gables, There are so many good ones, and I'll put some more recommendations down below. But and your project are to do 3 out of these 10 things, and write down some of the story ideas, or maybe things you thought about while you did them. And if you keep a journal of your inspiration ideas, when you want to write a story, you can just open it up and you'll find ideas, and you can take lots of them and add them to a story, or you can just take one of them and add them to a story. It's super helpful to have a journal of inspiration. And so, just gonna go over your recommendation and your project again. Your recommendation is to watch some good, creative, well-written movies, and or to read books that are in the genre you want to write eventually. So like fantasy, sci-fi, historical, modern. And then your project is to do 3 out of these 10 inspiration ideas. And that is everything for today. So have fun finding inspiration.